Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learning with Jelly. So, today we're on lesson 8, Seaborn, which is a great visualization package in Python. Our previous tutorial, we learned all about Matplotlib, which is a lower level visualization library in Python, but Seaborn is built off of Matplotlib. So, it's very important that you know the foundations of Matplotlib. Plus, you're going to be able to use some of the Matplotlib functionality when you're making your visualizations with Seaborn as well. But as we know, visualizations is great for data science and data analytics because it helps you tell the story of your data. So let's go ahead and get started with Seaborn. So our objective, Seaborn, why should you care? What is Seaborn used for? And we're going to make some plots. So we're going to make a scatter plot, a faceted histogram, a box plot, and a good old heat map. So Seaborn in data science. So it's way fancier than Matplotlib. So it's more client facing. If I were going to do a visual that I needed to put in a PowerPoint or that I needed to present to a client, I would definitely use Seaborn over Matplotlib. And for any projects that I have, it is built on top of Matplotlib. So you will find yourself, if you need to make X labels or a title for your visual, that you would still be using some of that Matplotlib functionality. Storytelling is very, very important in data analytics or data science. If you can't tell the story of your data, it's like you never even did anything to begin with. So, its visuals are very, very, very important. And you always want to explore your data before modeling. It's part of the process. And this is a visual of some awesome Seaborn plots that you can see how more fancier they look than just regular Matplotlib. So, what is Seaborn is a library for these higher level visuals. Okay, it's preferred over Matplotlib when you need graphs for presentations, reports, etc., and it's better for client facing materials. So, let's hop right in to create a scatter plot in Seaborn. So, just like we have Matplotlib, our pandas, and NumPy, now we have the Seaborn library, and I'm going to alias it as SNS. So, just like for pandas, I am going to use the same data set that I've been using for pandas and Matplotlib to help us make some visuals. So, pandas is going to read in our data set that we all will have access to by looking at the GitHub repo that I'm going to link to you below. And we're going to look at the head of our data. And when we do this, we see all of our columns, we see the first 5 rows, we see what's in our data. So that way we know what to actually visualize. And next, I'm going to make a simple scatter plot. Okay, so I'm still going to do this fig and ax object for plot.subplots. I'm just going to instantiate this. This is what that is called. Then for my x, for a scatter plot, is good between two numeric continuous variables. So I'm going to have square foot living, just like I did in the previous tutorial on the x-axis. And I'm going to have price on the y-axis. So I have SNS, which is our Seaborn alias, dot scatter plot. Remember in Matplotlib, it was AX1 dot scatter. Okay, so in Matplotlib, it was your axis object dot scatter. In Seaborn, is SNS dot scatter plot. X equals what you want on your x axis, Y equals what you want your y axis. And then this is what you get. And you can even see off the bat that it's going to give you a little bit some labels. It's going to give you some nice, like fancier dots that are more opaque. It looks like the dots have a little bit of a border around it, all of that great stuff. So it's looking way better than the Matplotlib scatter plot already because we look like we have some more defined circles than a big blue blob. Okay. But let's even add some more fancier functionality for Seaborn. Okay. So outside of having just X and Y, I can color the dots based off of waterfront. So I know waterfront in my data set is 0 if it doesn't have a waterfront and it's 1 if it does have a waterfront. So now I can run this and it automatically colors my scatter plot, right? To have the orange dots equal to 1, saying that my house has a waterfront, and no waterfront houses as blue. And I definitely can see that there's more non-waterfront houses in this data set than there are waterfront houses, but it also adds this little legend for me as well. So that's also some great functionality for Seaborn, is that you can change the hue or the color of the dots based off of another variable in your data set. I'm going to go ahead and make my fig size bigger because I like my plots to be, a little bigger for what I want. And so now when I rerun this, this should also make it a little bit bigger. I'm just going to, okay, so that blew up the first one. Awesome. Okay, so now outside of having the hue as waterfront, they have different palettes that you can look online. So, say for instance, I don't like the orange and the blue, I can change it to a different color. I'm still using the PLT objects, right, from Matplotlib to add my title, my X label, and my Y label. And when I do this, I get a nice title. I change the color now to light green and orange, which is beautiful. And I also have my labels as well. So these scatter plots can be made a whole lot fancier, right? You can change your limits of your labels. You can drop in a median or mean line if you wanted to. You can change where your legend is located. It's so many things that you can do with Seaborn just by looking at the Seaborn documentation, which I highly, highly recommend. That's going to put them eons above just Matplotlib. So that is our scatter plot. All in all, the scatter plot itself is just one line of code. You tell it what you want your X to be, you tell it what you want your Y to be, and if you want to color by a third variable, you definitely can do that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to histograms or faceted histograms using Displot. I use Displot a lot when I want to just explore my data. I never present a whole bunch of histograms to a client. It's normally like a single histogram with a purpose, right? But this is great for me to just figure out the histograms across a certain variable, okay? So I'm doing a Displot where X is going to be square foot living and my columns are going to be every separate condition in my data frame. So I'm just going to add a column above this and I can do DF and I'm going to put condition in here dot value count. So I can see the different levels of condition that I have in my data set. And so I see that there's 5 different levels of condition that I have. So it's a categorical variable, right? With most of my homes being condition level 3. Now it's up to you to look at the data dictionary and things of that nature to know what these different conditions mean. But pretty much, I want to see how my square feet relates to every different level of condition in my data frame. So a disk plot is definitely great for that. So I set a theme to be a dark grid. You can set, there's tons of different styles that you have. And then I have this plot where I have X as my square foot living. The columns I want as condition. So I want a histogram for every level of condition. You can change the bin width and you can also add titles above each plot as well. And when I do that, it takes it a second to run because, like I said, there's 5 different levels of condition that I'm trying to create a histogram for. Okay. And that's where this note has. But this is very beneficial when you want to see, hey, a certain condition is normally related to a certain range of square foot living. So this is all part of the data exploration that we do for data analytics and data science. And it looks like it should pop up momentarily. I know. All right. Awesome. So condition 1, I barely see any dots, right? Or any bars pretty much. I know that because I only have 30 homes in my data set that is condition 1. But for these top 3, which is conditions level 3, 4, and 5, I see that. So condition equals 3. This is how it's spread out. And it looks like most of these are pretty much skewed to the right. Okay. So my square foot living tends to have the same type of distribution for both of my top 3 conditions. Okay. You can put waterfront here, whatever else that you want to do to kind of look at the spread of one variable across multiple levels of another variable. Okay. So that is our disk plot. Now let's make our box plot. Okay. So once again, I'm setting my palette to be pastel, right? But in order to make the box plot, it's just pretty much one line in Seaborn. We do SNS dot box plot. What do you want your X to be? What do you want your Y to be? Okay, so pretty easy. And here I have my waterfront, right, on my X, and I have the square feet on my Y. So I can see those homes that have waterfronts on average, or the median, right? Their median square foot living is higher than those homes that don't have waterfronts. I also can see that I have a lot more outliers for the non-waterfront homes, which makes sense to me. And I do have a few outliers here for those homes that do have waterfronts as well. So I definitely can get a box plot to look at things like the 75th percentile, the median, the 25 percentile, see the spread, look at the outliers, et cetera, et cetera. So that is how we make box plots and Seaborns, just a one liner. Oops. Let's go ahead and go to our next one, which is a heat map, which is something that you're probably going to look at a lot when you want to look at correlations between variables. So we talked about dot core in our pandas tutorial, but this is how we would get correlations on our data frame. Okay. I'm calling heat map. I'm taking in those correlations. Okay. I'm taking in the C map that I did up here, which is just a palette that I wanted to use. V max is the maximum number on my legend, which I want one because I know correlations are from -1 to 1. And I'm giving it some line width functionality, centering it, etc. So when I get that, I get this out, right? Where one means that you're strongly correlated, right? And I can see some variables here that may have a strong association with one another. So in this case, square foot living is strongly associated with square foot above. Everything on the diagonal is going to be one because you are always highly correlated to yourself. But this is a nicer, fancier heat map to help me look at correlations than just a table of numbers. Okay. So I highly recommend, in conclusion, that you look at Seaborn documentation online. There are tons of visuals you can make. You can make violin plots, you can make line charts, bar charts, a whole bunch of different fancy visuals with different palettes, different colors, etc. So it's way more fancier than Matplotlib for your projects and anything client facing. If you don't have a dashboarding technique like Tableau, I would definitely resort to Seaborn. So thank you all for tuning in for Learning with Jelly. You have an awesome day.